The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hello, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Today we're doing a Skype interview with Father Frank Pavone of Priests for Life. So in a moment I will be introducing you to Father Frank, and we'll chat with you in a couple of seconds. Well, blessings to you, Padre.
You too.
I understand there's upcoming celebrations for you this year. What are they?
Yes, there certainly are. We have 2 anniversaries coming up, and one is the 25th anniversary of my heading Priest for Life, and the other is the 30th anniversary of my priesthood.
Mazel tov.
Thanks.
How will you be celebrating this?
Well, we will be having a couple of parties, of course, and as these the actual dates come closer. But really, we want to celebrate it by just a renewal of our mission. You know, a rededication to the original purpose of Priests for Life, which of course has never changed. To end abortion is our purpose. We want to use this. I'm talking to you from our brand new studio, our new office, our expanded headquarters in Titusville, Florida. So we're using the start of this new facility as part of this special observance. And of course, we will be having special prayer events and mission events, you know, where we take our staff and our volunteers and the clergy that work with us and give them opportunities to recommit themselves to this mission in an even more effective way. So it's a celebration. I think of it as a celebration and also a recommitment.
Where did you first start Priests for Life? Was this when and where?
Yes, it was actually, it took origins in New York under Cardinal O'Connor when he announced that he was forming a religious community dedicated to pro-life, which is the Sisters of Life. When he announced that in 1991, I thought right away there should be something like this for priests. And at the same time, a priest in California and some of his colleagues in San Francisco had thought the same thing. In fact, that priest's mom joined the first group of the Sisters of Life after she had lost her husband. And so I met them and I got involved with this newly formed organization. But as time went on, I really felt called to devote myself full time to ending abortion and defending the unborn. And that's where I went to Cardinal O'Connor, who was the Archbishop of New York, and asked him for permission to do exactly that. I asked him for permission to do full-time pro-life work. And right at that same time, the priest who had started it out in California, Father Lee Kaler, told me that he was going into military chaplaincy and that they needed someone to take the helm of this new organization. So the timing was perfect because the Cardinal was willing to let me do pro-life work and Priests for Life was willing to let me be their new director. And so that was in 1993. I became the first full-time director of Priests for Life.
Well, are you sponsored by the Archdiocese, or do you have...
No, Priests for Life is, like most Catholic ministries, is a freestanding, independent ministry. We're our own corporation. and board of directors and so forth. But obviously we work in union with the church and advancing the church's teaching and applying that teaching, particularly on this matter of abortion. And so we have priests, of course, who work with us, like myself, and each of the priests that work with us is accountable to his own religious congregation or diocese. But the organization itself has its own advisors among the bishops and at the Vatican. We work very closely with various agencies at the Vatican that are responsible for the promotion of life and the defense of the unborn. But it's a freestanding entity, and people would be familiar, of course, with the Knights of Columbus, EWTN. Well, Priests for Life is structured similar to those apostolates, where they are, rather than being a project of a particular diocese or a particular bishops' conference, they rather stand on their own as ministries working in union with all the dioceses and all the church.
So who else is working with you, like Dr. Alveda King herself?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned Alveda. We have a beautiful team working together. Priests for Life really has become a family of ministries, and this has been one of my goals over these 25 years of leading the organization, that we would serve every facet of the pro-life movement. So you mentioned Alveda King. She came to work with us about 13 years ago. She is heading up our outreach, of course, to the Black community. We call her work Civil Rights for the Unborn. And she travels and speaks, and people probably see her on television a lot. And but she's working full-time for us in that respect. Then we have Janet Morana, who's our executive director, and she, together with Georgette Fournay of Anglicans for Life, started the Silent No More campaign. Silent No More gives a platform to those that have had abortions or have been wounded by abortion and want to speak out about it. That's a big part of our ministry, as is Rachel's Vineyard, the largest ministry for healing after abortion, and that's a retreat program that takes place all around the world. Then we have our Hispanic outreach, we have our youth outreach. Brian Kemper heads up our youth outreach, which is called Stand True. And then we have the various work of our other priests, like Father Dennis Wild, who's our associate director, and the various other priests have served us full-time over the years. We have our political responsibility outreach, politicalresponsibility.com, and we have many other programs and projects, but a beautiful team that has come together to advance the right to life.
All Christians. This is beautiful.
Yes.
We are one. We're one family here.
One family, and as you say, they are all Christians, they're all followers of Christ. We do have, like Alveda, various people in our ministry who do not belong to the Roman Catholic Church, but nevertheless united in Christ and united in something that really should unite all of us, and that is that we don't want little babies to be killed. We want them instead to be protected.
You work alongside National Right to Life as well, Lutherans for Life?
We work very closely with National Right to Life. They've been good friends of ours over all the years. We strategize together. We consult with their leadership and also with their affiliate chapters in the different states. I just spoke last week in Michigan, for example, to one of the affiliates of the Michigan Right to Life, which is Right to Life of Michigan, which of course is affiliated with National. And I do that throughout the country, as do our other team members, speaking to these local groups and working especially to advance the kind of legislation that National Right to Life has crafted. One of those pieces of legislation is the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. So this legislation would protect babies in the womb who can feel pain. It would prohibit abortions from 20 weeks forward, which cuts in half the time during pregnancy during which abortions are permitted in the United States. And it is a great piece of legislation that we have been promoting both in the states and also now at the federal level. The House of Representatives just passed it. So National Right to Life has made a great contribution by crafting these kinds of laws that can stand up also to court scrutiny, because we know that the other side always challenges them in court. But the folks at National Right to Life do their homework on these things and make them as strong as they can possibly be.
I read in the, actually I listened to the news, and they had suggested that babies in the womb feel pain at 8 weeks.
Yes, the science is very, very strong to show them feeling pain very early in the pregnancy. In fact, the more research that is done, the earlier it gets. So when this particular law that we're talking about designates 20 weeks, that's a legal designation, and the science, of course, supports that. But that doesn't mean that they don't feel pain even before that. They do, because let's think about this for a moment. To feel pain, you need the pain sensors on the skin.
Yeah.
You need the nerves connecting them to the spinal cord, and then you need the brain processing that. And the portion of the brain that processes pain is not the cortex, which develops much later, but the thalamus that develops much earlier. And so all the mechanics are in place for the feeling of pain from those very, very earliest weeks of pregnancy. In the first trimester, you have all these mechanisms in place. And then if we observe the behavior of the baby in the womb, we see that baby shows the reactions to pain, not only by the movements, the whole body response to a painful stimulus, but also by the hormones. The stress responses are consistent with the patterns we see in adults. For example, if you have surgery, the anesthesiologist is standing there watching the body responses, because if that person does begin feeling the pain, he can tell, and then it can increase the amount of anesthesia. So we know how to see the body's responses to pain even when a person can't say ouch. And the unborn child can't say ouch, but those body responses are there nevertheless. And so we know from observing these children how very real their pain is. And a final consideration to keep in mind, these babies very likely feel pain worse than you and I would feel it.
Yeah.
Because the pain inhibitors have not been as well developed yet in them as they are in us. So they feel pain, and they probably feel more intense pain than we do.
Some people believe that the soul does not enter at conception. Well, I do. I believe that the soul is attached to the body itself when at conception. So, yeah.
Indeed. And I and many others, and of course the ordinary teaching of the church has always been exactly that. But even if a person comes along and says that they don't believe that, they still don't have the right to kill that baby. Any more than if they say to you and me, well, I don't believe that you have a soul. That doesn't give them the right to kill us. What we would say to them is, listen, you believe what you want. If you want to talk about beliefs, we'll talk about theology, we'll talk about philosophy. But if you're talking about legal protection, you and I and the babies in the womb need to be protected, not because of other people's beliefs, but despite other people's beliefs. Because other people might come along and say, I don't believe you're human. But they should not be allowed to kill us as a result. So it's an important point. The church's opposition to abortion actually comes from not so much the idea and the truth, which, like you say, you believe, I believe, we believe, that the soul is there at the moment of conception. But it comes from another truth, which is that no matter when the soul is attached to the body, God is the one in charge of the whole process.
God
at every point in time, before, during, and after conception, God has dominion over human life. So any effort to take that life at any stage is a violation against the rights not only of that baby, but the rights of God himself.
And I have noticed that throughout the world, people are breaking away from God Himself and doing
They are breaking away. You know, the church has something very strong to say about that. If you lose sight of the Creator, you no longer understand the creature.
That's right.
And we have, you know, the church talks about new evangelization. And one of the things Pope Benedict pointed out as he explained what new evangelization is, and there's an entire office at the Vatican that oversees and promotes new evangelization. He said, here's the problem. The gospel has been announced to many people, but they have forgotten God. And by forgetting God, they forget the meaning of life itself and of birth and of death. Well, obviously he's referring to problems like abortion. We forget the very meaning of life and death, and that puts everyone at risk. Because if we've forgotten God and we've forgotten, therefore, humanity, then we're all in danger of being oppressed or being mistreated by others. So we need to rediscover the value of humanity by rediscovering the reality of God.
And also euthanasia, that's the other end. Abortion and euthanasia.
Euthanasia is an application at the other end of life of the same mistaken idea that choice is more important than life. So people say, well, it's my body, it's my life, it's my choice. In euthanasia, they say, well, it's my body, it's my life, it's my death. And if it's my death, it's my choice. In both cases, we are imposing death. It's not about people choosing death. The baby doesn't choose his or her death. And very often when it comes to euthanasia, we're not talking about a person choosing death. We're talking about a person being pushed away by other people who are choosing their death, by other people who think that it's less expensive if they die, or who think that it's less burdensome if this person is killed. And a lot of people who are in these situations of terminal illness end up feeling guilty. They end up feeling pressured. They feel despair over their situation, and they feel like, oh, I'm guilty for being a burden to other people. We should never let that idea come into our minds and hearts. Being a burden to other people is not a reason for guilt or shame. It's an opportunity for love. We're all a burden to one another in one way or another, and we should be happy about that, because as Scripture says, bear one another's burdens lovingly. That's what love means. I accept your presence here. I accept the opportunity to serve you. I want to carry your burdens, and I want you to carry mine. This is the meaning of love and community and solidarity. What happens with both abortion and euthanasia is that community, solidarity, love itself are forgotten. They're thrown out the window. And a civilization cannot survive once that happens.
You know, with ISIS killing off a lot of Christians, we have to form together, us Christians, to protect ourselves and others. And how do we go about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. We have to realize this is an unprecedented attack on Christianity itself. Christianity, of course, has always been under attack. It started under attack.
Yeah.
The crucifixion of Jesus is what got this all started. And ever since, Christianity has been under attack. But we have to realize in our times, I mean, this is an unprecedented age of religious persecution. Terrorists are doing this with a very, very clear religious motivation. Some people want to say that terrorism is not about religion. Unfortunately it is. And it is really a radical effort to eliminate Christians and Christianity. And we need to stay together. We need to stay together in proclaiming the gospel of Christ, which is the gospel of life. We need to stay together in defending our freedom to be Christians. Just like others have the freedom to be other religions, but we've got the freedom to practice our faith. And that's so essential to defend, both in the United States and abroad.
So you have your own TV and radio shows?
We do. What you see behind me, we are in our new studio here in our expanded office in Titusville, Florida. And it's a full-blown television studio, and we can do live broadcasting and broadcasts like we're doing now. We also have a radio studio right across the hall, and we do multiple radio broadcasts, again, both live and taped. And so it's a beautiful set of tools that God has given us to proclaim the message of life.
What are some of the TV shows then?
We have the longest running and farthest reaching television program on abortion that has ever been produced. It's called Defending Life, and I'm happy to say that Mother Angelica herself, the foundress of EWTN, asked me to produce that series back in 1994.
Wow.
We began broadcasting it in 1995. And ever since then, on EWTN, the world's largest religious broadcasting network, it has been airing all throughout the world. So there's that TV program. There's another program called Gospel of Life. That's a radio program that we produce every week. Radio Maria hosts that program, and it's also online. But then we have Catholic View for Women, which is another EWTN show. And my colleague, our executive director, Janet Morana, began that together with Teresa Tomeo. And this show is also aired worldwide on EWTN. And it gives the Catholic understanding of what it means to be a woman, the vocation of women in the church and in society. And as we know, understanding the vocation of women is so important to the cause of defending the unborn. We also do radio spots and TV spots, so short pieces that are then taken by radio and TV networks all around the world, and they use them especially to raise the awareness of people about abortion. We do these spots to talk about different angles of the pro-life issues and pro-life strategies, commentary on news events, and inspirational messages about our duty to defend the unborn.
You've written books, you have articles, you have website. What's your website?
The website is priestsforlife.org, but we have another domain which we like very much, and it's prolifecentral.com. Pro-Life Central, because as we were discussing earlier, we really are serving the entire pro-life movement with all these various ministries, whether it's the political angle, the legislative angle, the educational, the spiritual, the post-abortion healing. We serve the movement in all these different ways. And so we have this beautiful web domain, prolifecentral.com. And when people go there, they can see links to each of the individual ministries that we have. And you mentioned also my books. I've authored 4 books on abortion. One of them, my first one, is called Ending Abortion, Not Just Fighting It. And it's a series of essays. The second book is more of a devotional. It's called Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day. So I take every day of the year, and we have a little quote, a little meditation, and a prayer. It takes about 1 minute, and people use it to really nourish their pro-life spirituality. My third book was a manifesto called Abolishing Abortion.
Yeah.
And in that book, I outlined pro-life strategy, and I identified what are the next things that the church and the state need to do in order to end abortion. And finally, my most recent book is called Proclaiming the Message of Life. And it's especially for preachers, clergy, who want to preach the pro-life message. But it asks a question that a lot of people ask me over the years. Why don't our clergy speak more about abortion? So it reviews some of the reasons, some of the fears they have. It answers those fears. It reviews how and why we preach about abortion. But then the bulk of the book, which is helpful both for clergy and laity, is that it looks at the Sunday readings for the whole year, and the Sunday readings cycle through 3 years of different readings. So it takes all 3 years, and for each set of readings, it talks about how would a preacher develop a pro-life message from those readings. Very, very comprehensive, very, very helpful, as I say, both for clergy who are preaching and for the people in the pews who want to know how those readings speak to our duty to defend the unborn and all human life.
So, how do you get these books out to the pastors and priests? Word of
Well, we
mouth?
have a number of bishops around the country have asked us for copies of these books to give to all their priests, which is a beautiful thing. We're always willing to do that. Secondly, we go around and give clergy seminars, and when we do those training seminars, we give them these books as well. And then, of course, our pastoral team is always traveling, so we're bringing these books into parishes, pro-life conferences, pregnancy center banquets, and things like that. Now, people can order these books online, and we have an online store, and it's prolifeproducts.org. And at Pro-Life Products, they can just see the books section, and they'll see all of these books I've just mentioned, and many more, because, of course, Alvita has written books, Janet has written books, other members of our team have written excellent books, and prolifeproducts.org will bring you to all those resources.
Well, I thank you, sir. I have a final question. Oh, I'm echoing here. HHS mandate.
Now, I'm glad you bring that up because we recently had a great victory in regard to that. The HHS mandate was an order from the Obama administration to virtually every employer in the United States. Now, we employ a staff of about 50 people, and this order said that when we offer them health insurance, we have to include abortion-inducing drugs, together with also contraception, sterilization, things that we teach are wrong. Things that we teach people should not do. Now we're being asked to facilitate people doing them. So, of course, we had to say no, as we can't include that in our health insurance plans. Our organization exists to end abortion. We teach against contraception and so forth. So that started a legal battle. That was 5 years ago. And a lot of other groups, including EWTN, including the various dioceses like Washington, Pittsburgh, and various others, jumped into the court battles as well. We ended up going all the way to the Supreme Court.
Oh, wow.
And of course, what happened then in the meantime was that the election happened and President Trump came into the Oval Office, and he's pro-life. And so he and his team said, you know what, there doesn't need to be any more dispute here because we want to protect religious freedom. We do not want to try to force Priests for Life or these other groups to do something that they believe is wrong. So basically, the Trump administration agreed with us, took our side, and now we just entered into a settlement with the government that they will never force us to do this kind of thing. And now we can go back to the court and say, okay, case is over because there's no more dispute. So basically, we won. Religious freedom in this matter is protected, and we have a lot of people to thank for that, including our new president, who really does believe in religious freedom and pro-life.
God is in control.
He is.
And Jesus is Lord. I am not ashamed to admit that.
Amen. I'm with it.
Amen, brother. So, this is the end of the show, my good friend. And Padre, thank you for coming and talking to me on Skype. And you have been quite a blessing for many people around the world, not just the United States.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and all of you listening are a blessing to me and our whole team at Priests for Life.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. May God be with you always, sir.
Amen. Also with you.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us all.